What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So, obviously, new Four Eyes persona unlocked. Apparently, I've been living with astigmatism for a very, very long time, at least over 6 years, and I've only decided to do something about it until my life depended on it. So, this is my life now, so y'all are just gonna have to get used to it, unfortunately. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about my shitty vision. I'm here to talk about some films that I watched in February. And I gotta say, I watched a lot of bangers in February. Um, Honestly, this is probably one of the best months I've had. Just watching all kinds of different films. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm probably gonna talk quickly about three or four of them. But I will talk ad nauseum about the final two films, which y'all will find out at the end of the video. But yeah, with all that being said, let's just dive right into this thing. So the first film I'm going to talk about is a animated film called Mad God. Now, Mad God is a film that I heard about since it was released, and it always intrigued me because the very first thing I heard about it was that it took like over 30 years to make, and that just sounded fucking mind blowing to me as to why a film would take that long to make. And after watching the film, I can kind of understand why that's the case. Now, I'm not saying the craft itself is the reason why it took that long. I'm pretty sure there was like a bunch of production issues and delays which caused it to, take 30 years or whatever. And also I heard it was like Phil Tippett's. I think it's a filmmaker's name. I heard it was like his passion project, so he kind of just made bits of it over time when he could, so that's why it took 30 years as well. But when you do watch the film, you kind of understand like why it did take a very long time to make, because the world that is crafted with Mad God is absolutely insane. The absolute audacity of it is commendable. I mean, the world itself is the film. Like, it really is what makes the film. It's basically the centerpiece of the film. It's like he wanted the world and the world building to be a character within itself. And I think in a way that does work, but in a way I feel like there's a little bit of an over-reliance on it to where it is, in my opinion, lacking in character and in story and in theme. And I feel like if it leaned a little bit more into these areas of screenwriting and filmmaking, I think it would have made a more compelling project. But again, it's still absolutely respectable. It's honestly one of the most, like, it probably is the most vile and disgusting stop motion animation films I've ever seen. Now, it's not only stop motion animation. It combines all kinds of different filmmaking styles to craft the world that it's in. There's some live action thrown in the mix. There's like some puppetry going on, on top of the stop motion. So there's a lot going on in this movie, but it is like a really fucking like graphic film, and just a lot of, again, like disgusting pieces of imagery. I mean, there's shit, there's vomit, there's blood, there's gore all over the place. Like, there's something horrible happening to some random character at like every second of this movie. And a lot of it's pure nightmare fuel. Like, if I were to watch Mad God when I was a kid, I probably wouldn't have been able to sleep right for like over a year. There's some unsettling and disturbing pieces of imagery in this movie that, again, feels like it's coming straight out of like the worst nightmare ever. And I respected and enjoyed it. Like, I'm not in love with the movie. I think it's good. But I respect it, and I admire it more than I really enjoyed it. But it is good. It is good, and I recommend people to eventually take their time to watch it. So yeah. With that being said, that's probably all I gotta say about Mad God. So in terms of ratings, I'll give Mad God a solid 6 out of 10. We're gonna move on to this film called The Sweet Hereafter. The Sweet Hereafter is a film directed by Adam Agoyan. And the only Adam Agoyan film I've seen before this was Exotica. I reviewed that film like over 4 years ago. And so when it got released on Criterion, I was pretty hyped. I bought it, obviously, because I really enjoyed that film. It kind of surprised me in a lot of different ways. I found it quite subversive, and I just thought it overall was a compelling piece of film. It was a compelling piece of filmmaking. So obviously was pretty excited to watch The Sweet Hereafter, which I heard great things about. It got nominated for Oscars and whatnot. So, and I think it won. Actually won Best Picture at the Cannes Film Festival. I know it's not called Best Picture, but although the Palme d'Or, it either won Palme d'Or or Grand Prix. You don't remember, but it won big at festivals and award shows, and obviously like that got me even more excited to watch it. And yeah, it's a pretty damn good movie overall. Adam McGowan also here kind of plays around with unconventional story structure. This is told in like almost like a non-linear fashion where it kind of jumps in between different time frames, and I really enjoyed that when it comes to this film. I thought it built things up in a more mysterious way, that made me feel more intrigued by the material as it progressed, and it also has a lot of different characters that it needed to establish. Like there is a lot of characters in this film, and I was honestly pretty impressed with its ability to establish all these characters and focus on them and delegate appropriate time between all these characters as the film progressed, that didn't feel too scatterbrained and felt, I don't know, it felt appropriate, and the allotted time between them just felt right. It never felt like it overstayed its welcome with any of the characters. Everything just felt like right on the money. So in that regard, I think it's really great. And overall, I did enjoy the theme of it. Well, there's multiple themes going on in this film, but ultimately I liked how this film kind of demonstrated that one singular event in a small town can completely change the community forever and just the spirit of it all. All it takes is one little thing. Well, in this case, it's not little, but it's basically one little thing that caused a big thing to happen, and it just changed the aura, and it changed everybody's motives, changed everybody's identity in the town, and it kind of exposed people for who they are, and it just, again, everything just breaks within the small town, and I really enjoyed that element of it. And yeah, I mean, in terms of negatives, I think that the score was a bit overbearing in certain parts. I think he could have dialed back a bit with some of the part, because there's some crucial moments in the film that you could tell, like narratively speaking, these are crucial moments, and the score was just way too much. Like it was really trying to, like, play the audience like a fiddle. Like it's trying to really like force you to feel these emotions, and it was just a little overbearing. It was just a little overbearing for me. And yeah, and also there's like some voiceover exposition, some voiceover narration, where you have this character that it's kind of like voiceover narrating this poem that's in that she. It's not a poem. It's like a children's book, like folktale thing, and she narrates this story in different segments of the film, and it's supposed to like directly relate to the actual current events that are happening in the narrative. And sometimes it was just too on the nose, and it was just like really unnecessary, especially with the ending. Because overall, I thought the ending was great. Like in terms of presentation, like visually and like screenwriting wise, it's good. It's just, unfortunately, that voiceover narration was kind of dragging it down a bit. It was being a little too much in your face about what it was trying to say, and to me, honestly, it could have just done without it completely. But yeah, I think that's all I gotta say about The Sweet Hereafter. I think it's a pretty damn good movie overall, though, so I'll give The Sweet Hereafter a soft to solid 7 out of 10 for sure. All right, let's move on to this film called The Lovers on the Bridge, which is directed by Leos Carax. The two Leos Carax films that I have seen are Annette and Holy Motors. Annette was decent, weird, funny kind of musical, and I hate musicals usually. Like, for those who do know, like I'm kind of a musical hater. But But Annette was weird and bizarre and different in a way that I at least admired and enjoyed to some degree. But Holy Motors is amazing. Like, everybody needs to watch Holy Motors. It's not gonna be for everybody, but that film was that film also has some sheer artistic audacity that I just really admired and enjoyed, and it's like both like it's an incredibly goofy, like a really goofy ass movie, but at the same time it's kind of genius, and I just think everybody should give it a shot. I really enjoyed that film. So now we got Lovers on the Bridge, which is one of his earlier works that has Juliette Binoche and Denis Lavant, who was also in Holy Motors. And they're both incredible in this movie. And this movie is awesome. I overall really enjoyed it. Leos Carax basically combines this very down-to-earth and incredibly gritty and grimy style of filmmaking that really depicts the homeless lifestyle in France. And especially like right out of the gate, like you just really feel every every ounce of dirt, every ounce of grime, the injuries that you witness in this film in the beginning, just you really feel every ounce of the pain. And you just, I don't know, it just does a really great job at like genuinely showcasing what it is like to be homeless. And it combines this very down-to-earth sense of realism with moments of like outrageous surrealism that I think worked very well, because the surrealism in this film is basically used to amplify the real down-to-earth emotions that the characters are feeling. It's basically used as a tool or as an extension, of the realism that we're seeing. And I think that it worked very well in this film. It worked very well. This is one scene where both the characters are drunk off their ass and they're laughing up a storm, and like all the objects and bottles around them are like 5 times the size as they should be. And just the shot itself it's a really compelling shot and a really creative shot, and things like that in this film that I thought were really great. And overall, like, it's a great film that has, I don't know, it has a very juxtaposed emotion to it, to where in one way there is a lot of hope for these characters in terms of how you can find love and romance in even the deepest, darkest, shambled corners of society. But in another way, it almost is showcasing that these characters are so broken and so troubled that eventually it's not going to lead to something pretty at all. Yeah, overall, like, it is a really compelling movie. I don't think it's perfect or anything, because I do think there are some moments to where the characters say really like obvious thematic things, like it's almost like Carax didn't really trust the audience to pick up on some of the themes, so he had some of the characters to like project it onto the audience. But overall, it is a really compelling movie, and it's a weird one, and it goes pretty far. This movie has some really bold moments. Denis Lavant hangs absolute dong in this movie. I was watching this movie, I was like, is that a fucking grown man or is that a horse? This dude's insane. And all, but I mean, he's a great actor. Like, this dude, like, he brings it in Holy Motors, but he also brings it here. He has a very physical performance to him. And I absolutely respect it. I respect, like, the boundaries that this guy pushes for himself and what he's willing to do on screen. And he kills it. Of course, Julie Binoche is fantastic as well. An absolute goddess walking amongst us feeble humans, and she is awesome. The makeup and hairstyling is great in this film too. Like, you buy every second of it. It's what really elevates the experience. It makes it feel very gritty and real, as I was mentioning earlier. Like, you really buy it. Again, like, I don't want to spoil too much, but she does play a character who is aware that she's losing her eyesight, and like as the film progresses, like the makeup and hairstyling like enhances that even more, and you really do feel it. Like you don't think you're just watching a movie with actors playing it. Like thanks to the acting and the makeup, I think it does an excellent job at really immersing you into this reality. But anyway, let me stop there. I really enjoyed Lovers on the Bridge. I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10. It was a really good one. I definitely recommend everybody to watch if you haven't seen it yet. All right, we're going to move to another film called Viridiana. This is a film directed by Luis Buñuel. And I've seen The Exterminating Angel from him, and I've seen The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. And I think that's it. I think that's probably all that I've seen from him. I could be missing one. But I think that's all I've seen from him. So, no. I've seen... Oh, no, that's it. No, I'm stupid. Sorry. I was thinking of another film, but it's definitely not him. Viridiana. This is a film that I won the Palme d'Or the year that it came out. And in Luis Buñuel fashion, this film is bold and it's got some boundary pushing and bizarre moments, especially in the first act of this film. And at first I was like, this doesn't really feel like a Buñuel film, but then once we reach the climax of that first act, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely a fucking Buñuel film, like 110%. And it's a film that basically explores the limits of one's convictions. This is a film that basically is honestly quite nihilistic in a lot of ways, and sometimes it doesn't quite work for me in filmmaking, but I think it works really well here because it feels very earned and fleshed out. Like he has a thesis, and I think he does a good job at pacing it out and exploring it in a way that, again, does feel like it was built up well and earned. And, like, I don't know, it just kind of... It's a film that, in my opinion, kind of showcases that, you know, to try to be a perfect person and to try to, you know, be above your average human is kind of a futile thing. Because no matter what, it's just gonna fucking blow up in your face, and the world's gonna put the middle finger right in your face, and you're gonna be left just, you know, giving in to what the world and what reality really is, which is basically an incredibly flawed world, especially with humans in it. But yeah, I mean, narratively speaking, this is a film where it's like a main character going through different identity crisis because of experiences that she has along the way. And there was a point in the second act that I felt like it lingered too long. There was a good 15 minutes or maybe even 20 minutes where I didn't feel as invested into the material. And it took a little bit for me to get back into it, but once it kicks into gear, especially in that third act, it really starts to get compelling and it really starts to get interesting. And again, especially the third act, it really showcases that Buñuel audacity. This is a film that criticizes religious ideas, idealistic ideas. It criticizes humanity as a whole. Like, I can see some people watching this film and thinking that it overly criticizes the poor, but really both the rich and the poor in this film they're not looked favorably upon. They both don't look very good. And I think, like, as a film, this is trying to showcase that humanity as a whole, rich or poor, are deeply flawed regardless. And I personally really dug it. I thought it was great. So with that being said, I'll give Viridiana a solid 8 out of 10. So let's move on to a film from Shinya Tsukamoto. Shinya Tsukamoto is a filmmaker that I've loved a lot so far. Tetsuo the Iron Man is, to me, an experimental horror masterpiece. That film, from beginning to end, is sheer insanity. and what he was able to do on a low budget through the editing and through the production design and just through his own visionary direction is just so inspirational. Love that film to death. It's one of my favorite films of all time. And I've also seen Kodako, which is also, again, a very bold fucking movie that is disturbing and boundary pushing in many different ways. Um, but I really enjoyed it. It's basically like a character study. I won't go into it too much, but it's a film that I think you should check out, but kind of proceed with caution because it was kind of unforgiving in certain areas. But anyway, the film that I'm talking about today from Tsukamoto is A Snake of June, and this film is also really really great. I mean, this is a film. Basically, it's like an erotic psychological thriller, where narratively speaking, our main character is essentially being blackmailed to commit public sex acts, and that's all I'll say really about the plot. And it really if this was put in the hands of like some other filmmaker, it could easily come off as cheap and sleazy. But of course, within Tsukamoto hands, he is able to craft something that is thematically compelling and genuinely suspenseful. I just feel like there's so much here that is again not only like really engaging from an aesthetic point of view, because Tsukamoto always brings his flair to the table when it comes to aesthetic direction and just his stylistic ability to bring to enhance and express thematic material. And he does that again like with this film and just elevates what's on paper. And look, it's a weird movie. Like every Tsukamoto film I've seen so far has its really out there weird moments. This one is more like in the vein of Tetsuo, especially in the third act, where we just see some again really weird like sci-fi, like also oddly sexual imagery that reminded me of what I loved from Tetsuo. But I really enjoyed it. Like I think it has a place for it, and it does get quite chaotic and bizarre as I was mentioning. But there was one moment of like abrupt chaos that I don't really know how I feel fully about it, because it just feels too out of left field, and I'm still pondering like where it actually took place narratively and what was exactly happening, because it is kind of a movie is a bit of a head scratcher, not only thematically but like narratively. It's gonna have most people watching it and being like, what the fuck even happened exactly? But it's, at the end of the day, that didn't bother me, the fact that I didn't really fully understand it, because I think thematically it was so compelling and I was still able to follow the narrative enough to feel incredibly engaged with it. This is a film that essentially just like blurs the line between sexual perversion and sexual liberation, and again, I think is intentionally trying to make the audience feel uncomfortable about the subject, but at the same time kind of open their eyes in a really twisted way, about what is possible if one decides to kind of just let go. And I also feel like this film is it also kind of like showcases that when one is experiencing impending death, how that just completely like alters your brain chemistry and basically pushes the boundaries of what you are willing to do in your life. And I really like the way that these themes were correlated within the narrative, especially with the main character's like marriage dynamic. And yeah, it's just, again, it's a really weird but oddly engaging psychosexual thriller kind of film, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's great so far. Tsukamoto has not missed, and I really need to buy that box set. I missed my opportunity to buy it during the Arrow sale, but hopefully the next Aerosol I'll finally pull the trigger on it, because I heard like all of his films in that box set are incredible. But anyway, yeah, A Snake of June, I will give that film a solid to strong 8 out of 10. Really, really great stuff. I definitely recommend everybody to watch it, obviously. All right, the next film we're going to be talking about. Now, this one, I have a lot to say about it, and it's because I am in love with it, and I love basically almost everything about it. And this is a film called Birth from Jonathan Glazer. Now, I watched pretty much all these films, I think. I watched because of the Discord. The Discord server has really always like forced me to keep up with films and watching them, and I'm super grateful for that. And the people in my Discord, my wonderful Kino Lord community, has pushed me to watch so many great films, and Birth is one of the highest up there. This is a film directed by Jonathan Glazer, and for those, I mean, right now the Zone of Interest that film is like taking off. Like, everybody who I've talked to is deeply in love with that film, rightfully so. I love that film. I think it's a great movie. And it's just because Glazer's craft is, I feel like, some of the most delicate and creatively subtle work that we see from contemporary filmmakers today. And Birth is a perfect example of that. This is a film that stars Nicole Kidman, and you know that I love me some like primetime Nicole Kidman. This was made in, I think it's like 2004 or something. I could be wrong, but it's the early 2000s when this film came out, and it deals with some controversial subject matter. The main concept of this film is basically Nicole Kidman's husband dying, and this child basically is claiming that he is the reincarnation of her dead husband. And you already know just from that quick synopsis alone that there's some weird, it's gonna tread on some weird territory, and some lines might be crossed here and there. And that's one of the many reasons why I do love it, is that I love a film that takes taboo topics and makes people think about it in ways that they haven't before. And this film does that in a few ways with two different subjects. But in particular with this subject, I feel like it does an excellent job at making the audience think about what the hell they would do in this situation. And especially when we are fallible human beings just by nature, and we only have few ways of perceiving reality in a grounded way, which obviously it's critical thinking and logic. Like, that is, in my opinion, the best way to kind of decipher fact from fiction. It's the only way to perceive reality, like, in a consistent way. And there's some kind of showcases when logic and critical thinking are perverted and exploited, and makes it to where you have you're basically trapped, and you have no other way of coming to your own reasonable conclusion about something, and you basically are forced to think about things in a more supernatural way. And I love the way that this film was able to explore that. It also shows how when one's grief is exploited as well amongst everything else, makes you more susceptible to this kind of stuff. And I just think that it was able to explore that in a very compelling way, along with making myself rethink the concept of remarrying after the death of your loved one. Beforehand, I used to think, well, yeah, eventually you gotta move on. Like, it's part of life. It's a cycle of nature. You gotta move on. You can't get hung up on that forever. But this film made me think a little bit more delicately and deeply about that. And I really loved that. It's been a long time since I've seen a film that kind of really made me question my own beliefs. And I think when a film was able to do that in a non-preachy way, is able to do that just through the sheer craft and the sheer power of this filmmaker's style and cinematic presentation, I don't know. I just admire that deeply. So, yeah, and again, like Glazer's craft here is just on display full force. The score here as well, like the score, I love the score to this film because it has this very conflicting emotion to it. Like in one way, it sounds incredibly uplifting and like optimistic, and then in another way, it feels very unsettling, as if something really bad is about to happen. And you kind of get that feeling like throughout the entire film from the score. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. You get that right out of the gate. And this film does an excellent job at utilizing that score and having Glazer's visionary direction he does this a lot of different ways, but one thing that I noticed more than anything is that his ability to linger on shots for quite some time and really allow an emotion and an idea to simmer for quite some time is absolutely incredible. You get multiple moments in this film where, just because of Glazer's ability to express these ideas and express these emotions through his craft and this unforgiving amount of lingering on a shot, I think is so compelling. And that's something that, again, like I don't think we get a lot from contemporary filmmakers. I think that what makes him stand out amongst a lot of like art house filmmakers today is that I just feel like when he's bold and does really unconventional things, it works better than any filmmaker that I've seen today. Like there's so much purpose behind it. And when it comes to like the thematic and emotional effectiveness of it, it's just, I mean, me personally, I think it works better than like any modern filmmaker we have. And it feels Kubrickian in a lot of ways as well. And maybe that's why I'm in love with it so much. But this is one shot in particular that lingers on Kidman's face for a very long time while she's sitting in the theater after she just experienced something. And just the use of score and the use of cinematography that lingers on the shot of her face, it's just beautiful stuff, like haunting and just enthralling shit. And I really, really loved it. Birth is just, I love this from the death. Like at the time, I think this still like a pretty like mixed, like this film is met with like mixed reactions, but I personally love this from the death. I think it's fantastic. It's everything that I would want in a compelling film, and reminds me a lot of why I'm absolutely in love with the art of filmmaking. So yeah, Birth, I guess I'll stop talking about it. I'll go ahead and rate it, and I'll give it a soft to solid 9 out of 10. I think it's possible on rewatch I just might go all the way and give it a 10, but for now I'll kind of reserve myself and give it a soft to solid 9. But it is incredible, and I encourage everybody to watch it, especially now with the Zone of Interest getting tons of buzz and tons of nominations at the Oscars. I think that this is the time to kind of give this film a shot and hopefully like revive it, because I feel like at the time it wasn't really respected. Well, at least it wasn't respected as much as I think it should have been. But anyway, I guess that's it. That's the last film. Kind of a long video. I didn't want it to go on that long, but whatever. I guess it happened anyway. But anyways, I really appreciate everybody for watching this video. I'm going to be releasing a video of my Oscar predictions pretty soon. And I guess that's it. If you want to join the Discord, you got to join the Patreon. It's $5 a month, and you'll get access to the Discord, and you get to watch movie nights with me and Perry and Blair and everybody else that's amazing in the Discord. You'll get to discuss films with us, and it's just an amazing time. The Discord is an amazing place if you love film. That's all I'm going to say. That's about it. If you really enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.